Dabo Swinney took time to put together a 14-minute video that I watched so you don't have to and took notes about, because I thought what we were going to hear was a Drew Brees kind of 180-degree turn on how he has spoken about Black Lives Matter and how he has spoken about how his players are interpreting this, as well as the rest of us. Having these conversations nationally with our biggest figures is one of the most important aspects of all of this. Roger Goodell can come out on social media and say that he stands with his players. We can see the quarterbacks in this league have all had something to say, most notably Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. And we have had player after player after player going, this is not up for debate. This is the thing that everybody can get behind. And yet and still, we have had more news come out of Clemson that is the bad news that Dabo Swinney said he was talking about last week. Then we've had good news come out of Clemson, starting with the story of assistant coach Danny Pearman using the N-word in language with former Clemson tight end DJ Greenlee, who I can't believe I have to say is black. And I want you to hear Dabo Swinney's argument, because that's what it was, about what had happened and the story he says about how Pearman came to use that word. Let's take a listen.
I would fire a coach immediately if he called a player an N-word. No questions asked. That did not happen. Absolutely did not happen. It has not happened. A story broke this week, and the story was not in context. But what happened was I didn't know anything about it. It was a coach and his player, Coach Pearman and DJ, off doing a drill in a part of the field. Wasn't in front of the whole team or anything like that. And Coach Pearman was correcting DJ. He didn't do the right thing. And I think DJ or another player was talking to DJ, or DJ was yelling at the player. And DJ, just kind of, said something he probably shouldn't have said. And he said, I blocked the wrong effing N-word. And Coach Pearman, thought he was saying it to him, and he's mad, and he reacted, and he basically, in correcting him, repeated the phrase. And he said, we don't say we blocked the wrong effing N-word. And he repeated it. And he shouldn't have done that. There's no excuse for even saying that. It doesn't matter what the context is. But there is a big difference. He did not call someone an N-word. And so, again, I didn't know anything about it. Things happen. There's a lot of things I don't allow in our program. But when things happen, we deal with them. And sometimes it's in private. Sometimes it's public. This particular case, the player came to me in private, and we handled it in private. And I think it's important to know, because every case is different. But this particular player, DJ, I've known him his entire life. Coach Pearman's known him his entire life. But he brought this to me in private, told me what happened. I met with Coach Pearman. He was profusely apologetic, and he told me exactly the same thing. Also consulted with Coach McCorvey on it, and we moved on. Coach Pearman apologized, and we moved on.
I get that you have moved on, but we have not, and that's the point. Because that word carries a negative connotation that dates back to the 17th century. I can't believe I'm having to give this history lesson about that word. And yet and still, it is a word that was used to identify all black folks. And as is written in H.W. Fowler's Dictionary of Modern English Usage, dating back to 1926, it was applied to all black folks and used to disenfranchise us, not from our country, but from humanity, to make us subhuman. It's the reason why it is such a derogatory word, and for which you have seen invented words like African American, which is supposed to be synonymous with things like German American or Native American. But black folks took their own word, black. There's a reason why James Brown says, say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. That is the operative word. using African American in a politically correct context is not exactly going to incite anybody, but I know who you are because I'm a black man and I'm a proud black man. And more than that, that could have been it, but he had more that he had to talk about. Dabo Swinney had to talk about why he had to let his players go to a sit-in at Sikes, which is the administrative building at Clemson University. And the background on this is that there were students who marched to the administration and sat in at the administration hall protesting the name on the front of Tillman Hall, which is for Benjamin Tillman, former governor of South Carolina, but also a man who was tremendously racist, a white supremacist of the highest order, claiming that we only have lynch law left. That was his word. He was not only afraid of black men, he took pains to make them less than human, equating them to monkeys and the missing link. You can understand why in the 20th century, in 2016, at this marketplace of ideas, Clemson students decided to take initiative and stage a sit-in at the administrative hall until there was a resolution passed to rename Tillman Hall. That's in 2016. Somehow, Dabo Swinney is in the position of having to defend whether or not he let his players go to this sit-in. And here's his explanation.
The Sikes sit-in, we had players participate in the Sikes sit-in. And I would never tell someone that they could not go participate in something they believe in or exercise just their basic right. I would never do that. But as a coach, our job is to teach, to educate, to protect, to inform, and consulted with the staff. And I stood in front of the team. And the only thing I said to the team was if you're going to participate, make sure you know what you're signing up for. Make sure you know what the agenda and the message is, the fine print, if you will, because you're not going to be Johnny Joe the student and go over there and just blend in. If you go over and you participate, you need to be prepared to be on the news and on ESPN and so forth because of who you are. So just make sure that it's something that you really know what you're getting involved in. That was the only thing I said.
On its face, that is not bad advice. However, coming from the head coach of the football team, for which we think we could all get behind why the students are staging the sit-in, you also understand that as football players, the visibility matters here. There's a reason why when politics cross over into sports, it gets everybody's attention. You cannot run from it. And these players who are playing on then a team that's competing for national championships on a regular basis, which is the reason that I'm even talking about this right now as it relates to Dabo Swinney, matters. As we say, Black Lives matters. But even that, Dabo Swinney couldn't get right. This is the second time that he talked about this at length, and he couldn't get that right. And I want you to hear why he couldn't get that right. But first, hear how he couldn't get that right.
Will say, I wholeheartedly support Black Lives Matter. In fact, I don't quite think that's adequate enough. I think Black lives significantly and equally matter. To me, just Black Lives Matter is kind of like, hey, we matter too. I think Black lives significantly and equally matter. All right? God loves us all. None of us are better than anybody else. It doesn't matter what the color of our skin is, where we're born, any of that stuff. All right? In the eyes of God, we are all equal. We're all first team. We're all 5 stars. We all got an eternal contract. And that is what I believe.
I could probably let go the story with the N-word. I could probably let go having to mount a defense for why you had to have a conversation with your football players about peacefully protesting. But I cannot let go this use of equal in this context. Plessy v. Ferguson happened. Separate but equal happened. No, we are not separate but equal. We are all alike under the Constitution. That's what this is about. It's not about whether or not I'm saying I'm equal to you. It's about protesting police brutality. That's what this is. It's quite honestly become something else entirely, as he's trying to couch this in saying, no, they matter significantly. Well, yeah, they kind of do, because they make up more than 60% of your football team. But that ain't what we're talking about here, Dabo. What we're talking about is police brutality. We're talking about how George Floyd was murdered. We're not talking about whether or not black folks are on par with white folks. But even if we were, you're totally going about this the wrong way at Clemson friggin' University. This is a space where DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson have come out in front and say, we want to see John C. Calhoun renamed. Why? Because one of the men who gifted the land that became part of the Moral Act land grant, which I'm going to get to, is John C. Calhoun, who was not just a racist, but a slave owner, who also said things like slavery is indispensable to a Republican government. Huh? He said, I hold that in the present state of civilization, where two races of different origin and distinguished by color and other physical differences as well as intellectual. He said, liberty is not a universal right, but is reserved for the intelligent, the patriotic, the virtuous, and deserving. This at a time in the 19th century where slavery was legal and we went to war because of it. It's 2020, guys. We don't need John C. Calhoun anymore. Glad he gave him the land. But it's also a land grant university. That means in 1862, with the establishment of the Moral Act, Clemson was one of the many universities that saw land granted to them according to U.S. Congress and congressional districts. It's named after Vermont Congressman Justin Smith Morrill. The schools that have A&M in the name, like, say, Oklahoma State University, yes. But it also made for the establishment of HBCUs, that is historically black colleges or universities, because separate but equal was a thing, which means that we quite honestly were making two different schools, two different water fountains, two different places to eat, because we did not want to mingle. We didn't want to be at a mixer. And Clemson University is one of the places that benefited from this. It's a place that started out as an all-white and all-male institution. It does have a tremendous racist past to deal with. And one of the ways to help deal with it is to remove Tillman's name from it, is to remove John C. Calhoun's name from it. But you're also removing the name of a founder. Okay, fine. Legacies change. They have to. We are not them. They are not us. And while I appreciate tremendously that Dabo believes we are all God's people, because we are, but I also am a little bit frustrated because once again, he's missing the point. Because once again, he is neglecting to identify with many of the values that we are taught in church, among other places, which is that this is not about right now. Right now, this is not about saying what you believe in. This is about saying what you don't believe in. There are parts of this that absolutely I believe that we could give to him and he would agree with. But the one that I choose is the one that I was taught by my mother and the one that I keep dear. This is Matthew 5:11. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. That does not just extend to our Lord. That extends to us. Stand with us. Stand for us. No, today is not the day. Now is not the time to tell us what you believe. Today is the time for us to tell us what you stand for. You stand for us. You stand with us. And that is to stand with him. Dabo, you are one of the most successful college football coaches of all time, and what you have done at a place like Clemson is remarkable. And in some ways, in the age of college football that we live in, miraculous. I beg you, listen to how these things land with us, because I believe you are a good man. I know you are a good man. I know you are a God-fearing man. You're missing this. You're missing this at a time when we need you. Stand with us. Because they're killing us.